Imagine a world simmering with spiritual hunger, where ancient faiths clashed and new ideas sparked like wildfire. In this crucible of belief, a figure would emerge who dared to weave a tapestry of truth from the threads of existing religions. His name was Mani, born in Parthian Mesopotamia in the year 216 CE. Mani wasn't just another prophet. He was a painter, a physician, and a polymath, claiming to be the final apostle in a lineage that included Zoroaster, Buddha, and Jesus. He believed these earlier messengers had delivered incomplete or corrupted messages, and it was his divine mission to reveal the whole, unvarnished truth. This bold assertion would set him on a collision course with empires and established churches. His teachings quickly spread, captivating minds from the Roman Empire to the farthest reaches of China. Yet, despite his profound influence, Mani's name is rarely mentioned in mainstream history. Why did such a pivotal figure vanish from our collective memory? And what exactly was the revolutionary message that both captivated and terrified the ancient world? That's what we'll uncover as we delve into the religion of light and darkness. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's get started. Mani's core message revolved around an eternal struggle, a cosmic war raging not just in the heavens, but within every human soul. He taught that reality was fundamentally dualistic, composed of two uncreated, opposing principles: the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. This wasn't just a philosophical concept, it was a living, breathing reality that dictated the very nature of existence. The kingdom of light was pure spirit, associated with God, goodness, and the soul. The kingdom of darkness, conversely, was matter, evil, and the body. Our physical world, according to Mani, was not a creation of God, but a byproduct of an ancient, cataclysmic infiltration by the forces of darkness into the realm of light. Humanity, therefore, housed particles of divine light trapped within material bodies. This inherent conflict meant that salvation wasn't about redemption in a traditional sense, but liberation. The goal was to free the light particles from their darkened prison, allowing them to ascend back to their divine source. This stark, uncompromising vision offered a radical alternative to the prevailing spiritual landscape. But how did this intricate cosmology translate into a living faith, and who were the devoted followers drawn to Mani's powerful assertions? We'll explore Mani's disciples and the dual orders that structured his growing movement. Mani structured his rapidly expanding community into a highly organized, hierarchical system that mirrored the duality of his cosmic vision. He understood that not everyone could commit to the same rigorous path, so he established two distinct orders of disciples: the elect and the hearers. This stratified approach allowed for widespread participation while maintaining a core of dedicated adherents. The elect, numbering in the hundreds, were the spiritual elite. They committed to an ascetic lifestyle of extreme purity, adhering to strict vows of celibacy, vegetarianism, and poverty. Their entire lives were dedicated to liberating the light within themselves and through their ritualistic practices, also aiding the salvation of the hearers. They were the priests, the missionaries, and the living embodiments of Manichaean ideals. The hearers, who formed the vast majority of Manichaeans, lived more conventional lives, engaging in work, marriage, and family. While they supported the elect financially and spiritually, they were not bound by the same stringent ascetic rules. Their path to salvation was facilitated by the elect, who absorbed their minor transgressions and helped them advance towards rebirth into the higher status. This interdependent relationship was crucial for the religion's growth, but how were these complex teachings transmitted and preserved to sustain such an intricate system? That's where we turn to the Manichaean scriptures, banned and burned. Mani himself was a prolific author, believing passionately in the power of the written word to clarify and preserve his teachings. He personally wrote 7 major treatises, often dictating them to scribes, and even illustrated his own books, creating a unique visual component to his sacred texts. These scriptures formed the bedrock of Manichaean doctrine, providing a comprehensive guide to their cosmology, ethics, and practices. The most famous of these was the Arjang, or Book of Pictures, a lavishly illustrated volume designed to convey complex spiritual truths through art. Other key texts included the Shaburagan, dedicated to the Sasanian Persian Emperor Shapur I, and the Kephaleia, or chapters, which detailed doctrinal points. These extensive writings were translated into many languages, reflecting the religion's global reach, and were meticulously copied and disseminated by his followers. However, the very existence and influence of these scriptures marked them for destruction. As Manichaeism gained traction, it became viewed as a dangerous rival by established religions and empires. Copies of Mani's works were systematically hunted down, confiscated, and burned, first by Persian authorities, then by the Roman Empire and the burgeoning Christian Church. This fierce campaign of suppression raises a critical question. Why did Rome and the Church declare war on a faith that preached peace and liberation of the soul? The clash between Manichaeism and the Roman Empire, as well as the nascent Christian Church, was inevitable, fueled by a potent mix of political, theological, and social anxieties. For Rome, Manichaeism represented an external threat, often associated with their Persian rivals, given Mani's Mesopotamian origins. Its rapid spread across imperial borders was seen as a subversive influence, undermining traditional Roman values and potentially destabilizing the empire. Emperors issued increasingly harsh edicts, fearing its disruptive power. For the Christian Church, still solidifying its own doctrine and authority, Manichaeism posed an even more insidious challenge. Mani's claims of universal truth, his incorporation of Jesus into his prophetic lineage, and his highly sophisticated dualistic theology directly contradicted Christian monotheism and the salvific role of Christ. Manichaeism offered a compelling alternative narrative, drawing away many, including for a time, Saint Augustine himself. The Church saw it as a dangerous heresy, a perversion of true faith that needed to be eradicated. The Manichaean emphasis on secret knowledge, its distinct liturgical practices, and its alternative understanding of good and evil were deemed intolerable by both secular and religious powers. The very success of Manichaeism made it a target. This relentless persecution led to widespread suppression and ultimately an attempt to erase Mani's presence from history. But how successful were these efforts, and what was the impact on later civilizations, particularly in the East? Let's explore the Islamic erasure of Mani's legacy. Following the rise of Islam in the 7th century, Manichaeism faced yet another formidable challenge. While early Islamic rulers initially tolerated various religious communities under their dominion, the perception of Manichaeism as a dualistic heresy, contradictory to absolute monotheism, soon hardened. Islamic scholars and authorities actively engaged in polemics against Manichaean beliefs, often portraying them as dangerous and irrational. The Abbasid Caliphate, in particular, launched widespread persecutions against Manichaeans, labeling them Zandaka, heretics, or freethinkers. Manichaean leaders were executed, their places of worship destroyed, and their libraries burned. This systematic campaign aimed to obliterate the faith from within the burgeoning Islamic empire. Unlike the Romans or Persians, the Islamic world presented a unified front against Manichaeism, making escape or sustained practice increasingly difficult. The historical records from this period often demonize Mani and his followers, casting them as deceptive and corrupt. This deliberate reshaping of historical memory contributed significantly to Mani's disappearance from mainstream narratives, effectively erasing much of his influence in the Middle East. Yet despite such concerted efforts, Manichaeism displayed an astonishing resilience. How did this religion of light manage to persist, finding new life in unexpected corners of the world? We uncover Manichaeism's strange survival in the East. Despite centuries of relentless persecution in the West and the Middle East, Manichaeism did not simply vanish. Instead, like a persistent ember, it smoldered and then ignited anew along the Silk Road, finding an improbable sanctuary in the distant East. Its doctrines resonated deeply with cultures already steeped in rich spiritual traditions, particularly in Central Asia and China. Manichaean missionaries, driven by their universalist vision, adapted their message to local contexts, incorporating elements familiar to Buddhist and Zoroastrian thought. In the Uyghur Khaganate, an empire stretching across Central Asia in the 8th and 9th centuries, Manichaeism achieved its greatest political triumph, becoming the official state religion. This royal patronage provided a crucial, though temporary, haven for the faith, allowing its clergy to thrive and its scriptures to be preserved in new languages like Old Turkic and Chinese. Even after the fall of the Uyghur Khaganate, scattered Manichaean communities persisted in China for centuries, their teachings blending with local customs and even influencing various secret societies. The discovery of hidden Manichaean temples, murals, and texts in places like Turpan and Fujian province decades ago provided irrefutable proof of its astonishing endurance. This unexpected resilience in the face of overwhelming odds begs the question: what was it about Manichaeism that allowed it to adapt and appeal to such diverse cultures, even those with strong existing religious frameworks? Let's consider what Manichaeism claimed about other religions. One of the most striking aspects of Manichaeism, and perhaps a key to its initial widespread appeal, was its audacious claim to encompass and perfect all preceding religious revelations. Mani presented himself not as an overturner of previous prophets, but as their ultimate fulfillment. He asserted that Zoroaster, Buddha, and Jesus were all true messengers, but their messages had been either incomplete, misunderstood, or corrupted by their followers over time. Mani positioned himself as the final and universal prophet, sent by the Father of Greatness to deliver the unadulterated truth to all humanity. He believed that while other religions offered glimpses of the light, only his complete system provided the full, coherent map to salvation. This syncretic approach allowed Manichaean missionaries to engage with people of different faiths, not by direct confrontation, but by acknowledging and reinterpreting their sacred figures and texts within a broader Manichaean framework. For a seeker struggling with conflicting religious truths, Mani offered a grand synthesis, a unifying vision where all paths led, ultimately, to him. This audacious inclusiveness was both its strength and, paradoxically, a major reason for its persecution, as it challenged the exclusive claims of established orthodoxies. This unique perspective was deeply rooted in Mani's fundamental understanding of reality. We turn now to the doctrine of the two realms. At the very heart of Manichaeism, defining every aspect of its belief and practice, lay the doctrine of the two realms. This wasn't merely a theological concept. It was Mani's fundamental explanation for the existence of good and evil, light and darkness, and the very structure of the universe. He taught that from eternity, there existed two distinct, uncreated, and opposing principles: the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. The kingdom of light, a realm of pure spirit, was good, peaceful, and ruled by the Father of Greatness. It was composed of a divine essence, where souls and intelligence resided in perfect harmony. In stark contrast, the kingdom of darkness was a chaotic material realm, characterized by evil, conflict, and governed by the Prince of Darkness. This realm was a swirling maelstrom of matter, fire, wind, and water, representing all that was coarse and destructive. These two realms originally existed entirely separate, never mixing. However, a cataclysmic event occurred when the darkness, driven by its inherently aggressive nature, encroached upon the borders of the light, initiating a cosmic war. This fundamental dualism meant that evil was not merely the absence of good or a human failing, but an independent, active force co-eternal with good. This radical understanding had profound implications for how Manichaeans viewed the body, the world, and their daily lives. How did this deep-seated belief system translate into the practical, everyday rituals of the faith, especially concerning the most basic human need, food? Let's explore the significance of food rites and physical purity. For Manichaeans, every bite of food was imbued with cosmic significance, directly reflecting their doctrine of the two realms. Due to the belief that particles of divine light were trapped within matter, consuming food wasn't just sustenance. It was a sacred act of liberation. Certain foods were considered to contain more light than others, making their consumption a spiritual duty rather than a simple meal. Specifically, fruits, vegetables, and grains were highly favored, as they were believed to harbor a greater concentration of light particles. Animal products, on the other hand, were strictly forbidden for the elect, as they represented a more entangled and corrupted form of matter. The act of eating by the elect was a ritualistic process designed to free the light within the food, allowing it to ascend back to the kingdom of light while the material residue was expelled. The hearers, while not bound by the same extreme dietary restrictions, were encouraged to support the elect by providing these specific pure foods. This interconnectedness highlighted how deeply their cosmology penetrated daily life. This focus on physical purity extended beyond diet, influencing every aspect of their existence as they sought to minimize contact with the polluting forces of darkness. But if physical acts like eating were so critical, what about the internal, mental practices? What role did dedicated spiritual exercises play in this journey of liberation? We next examine Manichaean meditation and their manuals of ascension. Beyond the meticulous food rites and external purity, Manichaeans practiced a profound form of internal spiritual discipline, guided by what can be called manuals of ascension. These were not casual meditations, but structured practices aimed at purifying the mind, controlling desires, and releasing the trapped light within. The emphasis was on introspection and a conscious detachment from the material world, which they viewed as the realm of darkness. For the elect, meditation was an essential daily practice, often involving long periods of silence, contemplation, and recitation of various prayers and hymns. These were not prayers of supplication in the traditional sense, but rather a focused effort to align one's inner being with the divine light and to disengage from the lures of the material body. They sought to cultivate a state of spiritual vigilance, ever aware of the cosmic struggle unfolding within and around them. The goal was to achieve gnosis, a direct, intuitive knowledge of the divine truth, which Mani had revealed. This inner illumination was the ultimate path to liberation, allowing the soul to prepare for its journey back to the kingdom of light. The emphasis on inner work and spiritual discernment was crucial for navigating what Manichaeans believed was a literal, ongoing conflict, not just within themselves, but in the cosmos itself. This leads directly to their dramatic battle doctrine. We journey now into the war in the sky, mythic battle doctrine. The Manichaean worldview was fundamentally shaped by an epic, ongoing cosmic conflict, an ancient war in the sky that continued to reverberate through every layer of existence. This wasn't merely a metaphorical struggle. It was a literal, mythic battle between the forces of light, led by the Father of Greatness and his emanations, and the forces of darkness, commanded by the Prince of Darkness and his demonic legions. According to Mani, the universe as we know it was born from a primal invasion. The kingdom of darkness, inherently chaotic and aggressive, attacked the peaceful kingdom of light. To defend itself, the Father of Greatness emanated various entities, including the primal man, who courageously descended into the realm of darkness to repel the invaders. This primal man, however, was partially overwhelmed and devoured, mixing his light with the darkness. Our physical world and human bodies, therefore, were the result of a complex, divine effort to extract and purify these trapped particles of light. The sun, moon, and stars were not just celestial bodies, but actively involved in a grand cosmic machine, designed to process and elevate this light. The human soul itself was a fragment of the divine light, held captive by the material body and its desires, which were manifestations of the darkness. This grand narrative of cosmic struggle was not merely an ancient myth. It was a blueprint for understanding current events, human suffering, and the path to salvation. Such a vivid and comprehensive cosmology couldn't help but leave its mark, influencing thought in ways often unacknowledged. We now explore Manichaeism's influence on future heresies. Despite the vigorous attempts to suppress and destroy it, the core tenets of Manichaeism proved remarkably resilient, subtly influencing numerous intellectual and spiritual movements for centuries after its apparent decline. Its dualistic framework, the stark opposition between good and evil, spirit and matter, resonated deeply with many who felt a similar tension within their own faiths. This resonance led to Manichaean ideas surfacing, often uncredited or reinterpreted, in later heresies. One of the most prominent examples lies in the Bogomils of medieval Bulgaria and the Cathars of southern France. These groups, appearing centuries later, exhibited striking similarities to Manichaean thought. A strong dualism, rejection of the material world as inherently evil, denial of Christ's physical resurrection, strict asceticism for their spiritual elite, and a critique of the established church's worldliness. The Cathars, in particular, adopted a similar two-tiered structure of perfects and believers, echoing Mani's elect and hearers. While these later movements rarely explicitly identified as Manichaean, the parallels were too strong to ignore. The very language used by their detractors often labeled them as neo-Manichaean or Manichaean relics, demonstrating the Church's own recognition of the enduring spirit of Mani's vision. Even if the name Mani was forgotten, his ideas continued to inspire and challenge, often finding new guises. But how often were these influences hidden in plain sight, encoded even in the very symbols the Church sought to control? We now come to the symbols the Church silenced. The conflict between Manichaeism and the early Christian Church was not only theological but deeply symbolic. As the established Church consolidated its power and defined its orthodoxy, it actively sought to silence or recontextualize any symbols that threatened its singular narrative. Manichaeism, with its rich tapestry of imagery drawn from various traditions, often presented alternative interpretations of universal symbols, forcing the Church to react defensively. For example, the cross, central to Christian iconography, held a different meaning for Manichaeans. While they acknowledged Jesus, they viewed his crucifixion not as a salvific act, but as a cosmic event illustrating the suffering of light trapped in matter. This reinterpretation challenged the very heart of Christian atonement. Similarly, concepts like the serpent, often seen as a symbol of evil in Christianity, could be viewed in some Manichaean contexts as a Gnostic revealer of hidden knowledge, reflecting older, diverse symbolic traditions. The very act of painting, which Mani himself championed through his Book of Pictures, became suspect. While the Church later embraced iconography, it initially viewed intricate, visually appealing Manichaean texts as potentially seductive and misleading, a tool for spreading dangerous ideas. The systematic destruction of Manichaean art and literature was not just about suppressing texts. It was about silencing a competing visual and symbolic language that dared to challenge the emerging Christian symbolic order. This intense battle over meaning and imagery highlights a deeper historical truth. History is often written by the victors. Let's delve into rewriting the narrative when orthodoxy wins. The story of Manichaeism is a stark example of how history, and indeed spiritual truth, is shaped and rewritten by those who ultimately gain power. When a dominant orthodoxy emerges, it doesn't just suppress its rivals. It actively reforms the collective memory, often demonizing the vanquished and erasing their contributions. This was precisely the fate of Mani and his religion. The Roman Empire and the Christian Church, after centuries of struggle and internal consolidation, achieved a level of institutional and political dominance that Manichaeism, despite its initial success, could not match. With this power came the ability to control narratives. Manichaean texts were systematically burned, their followers persecuted and often executed, and their doctrines distorted in the writings of their opponents. Saint Augustine, a former Manichaean himself, became one of its most vocal and influential critics, his theological critiques serving to solidify the orthodox anti-Manichaean stance. The result was a deliberate and largely successful historical erasure. Mani was not simply forgotten, he was actively cast as a villain, a deceiver, an arch-heretic whose teachings were dangerous and perverse. Succeeding generations inherited this prejudiced view, ensuring that Manichaeism, despite its profound influence on culture and thought, was relegated to the dustbin of obscure ancient heresies. Yet this complete suppression also leads one to wonder if the world truly wasn't ready for Mani's radical vision. Mani's ambitious project to synthesize all existing religions into one universal, truth-revealing faith was, in many ways, ahead of its time. His radical dualism, his comprehensive cosmology, and his highly structured community offered an appealing path to salvation for many. However, the very breadth and depth of his vision, coupled with the uncompromising nature of his claims, made the ancient world fundamentally unready to accept it. The established empires and burgeoning world religions of Mani's era, Zoroastrianism, Judaism, and nascent Christianity, were each striving for their own universality and supremacy. Mani's assertion that he was the seal of the prophets, bringing a complete revelation that superseded all others, directly challenged their exclusive claims to truth. This was not an era of religious pluralism or philosophical dialogue in the way we might understand it today. It was a battle for spiritual dominion. Furthermore, the Manichaean emphasis on extreme asceticism for the elect and its often pessimistic view of the material world clashed with the more optimistic creation narratives and social structures of many contemporary faiths. Mani's call for liberation from the physical, while appealing to some, was too radical for the broader societies he sought to convert. The world, caught in an era of consolidating powers and defining dogmas, was simply not prepared for a prophet who offered to dismantle and reassemble all existing truth into a single, profound, yet ultimately confrontational system. Make sure to subscribe for more religious videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.